Buckingham Palace has seen its fair share of royal confrontations, but few as tense or as personal as this. Prince William, now the heir apparent, entered the room with a level of resolve that stunned the inner circle. It wasn't a discussion, it was a declaration. In a private meeting attended only by senior royals, William calmly but firmly issued a statement that would shift the palace's balance of power. It concerned Queen Camilla and the influence she continued to wield in matters William believed should belong to the next generation. "This is where I draw the line," William reportedly said. "There will be no more leeway, not where it affects the future of the monarchy." Camilla sat frozen. Those present say she was visibly caught off guard. After decades of public rehabilitation, quiet resilience, and finally being crowned queen, she thought the tides had turned in her favor. But William's words cut deeper than royal titles. His tone wasn't angry. It was final. Later that evening, insiders say Camilla was seen quietly wiping tears away in her private chambers. The woman once vilified by the public now faced rejection from within the very family she had fought to be accepted by. And this moment wasn't just about emotion. It was about decades of tension finally rising to the surface. A long and winding road, William and Camilla's history. To truly grasp the weight of William's ultimatum, we need to rewind. His story with Camilla is not one of betrayal. It's one of complicated grief. William was just a boy when he watched his parents' marriage fall apart. While the public pointed fingers privately, he witnessed his mother's tears. He lived through the press storms, the late-night phone calls, and the whispered family arguments. And behind it all, there was one name that echoed again and again: Camilla. Even after his father married her in 2005, William maintained a diplomatic front. He shook hands, smiled at public events, even posed for photographs. But those close to him say the distance never fully disappeared. He respected her role, but that doesn't mean he ever accepted it. The grief of a son and the duty of a prince don't always coexist peacefully. And after years of trying to balance both, William finally reached his breaking point. The ultimatum wasn't just professional, it was personal. It was the silent pain of the past turning into action in the present. A son's unresolved grief. No matter how many years pass, Diana's presence is still felt, especially by her sons. William has always been the quieter one. He doesn't speak often about her, but when he does, the emotion is unmistakable. She wasn't just his mother, she was his moral compass. Her words, her battles, her heartbreaks, they shaped him. So when he sees decisions being made that he believes dishonor her legacy, something inside him shifts. Protectiveness becomes policy. Sentiment becomes strength. "There were 3 of us in this marriage," Diana famously said. Those words are etched in the collective memory of the nation, but they're engraved in William's heart. Camilla's ascension to queen consort may have been a public victory, but for William, it reopened a wound. A reminder that while history moves forward, pain doesn't always follow the same timeline. His ultimatum, some believe, was the moment he finally acted on the emotions he had been carrying since that walk behind his mother's coffin. And once spoken, those emotions refused to return to silence. From mistress to queen consort, Camilla's journey has been one of the most controversial royal transformations in modern history. From the shadows of scandal to the throne beside King Charles, hers is a tale of survival and reinvention. She endured decades of public hostility, tabloid attacks, whispered condemnation. But through it all, she remained silent, stoic, steady. She took on causes, She smiled through awkward introductions. She earned respect not by demanding it, but by waiting. By 2022, Queen Elizabeth herself offered her full endorsement, requesting that Camilla be recognized as Queen Consort. When Charles took the throne, it was a symbolic moment, a sign that the monarchy had moved on. But had everyone? William's recent actions suggest otherwise. For all of Camilla's quiet efforts to earn her place, there remained one heart she had never fully won, and it was the one that mattered most for the crown's future. The tearful aftermath of William's ultimatum wasn't just about policy. It was a sudden reckoning, a realization that despite her title, her position was not yet secure in the eyes of the next king. Kate versus Camilla. The coronation of King Charles III was meant to be a defining moment, a symbol of stability, unity, and tradition continuing. But beneath the sparkling jewels and centuries-old rituals, something unspoken cast a shadow over the golden glow. It wasn't what was said that caught attention. It was what wasn't done. Princess Catherine, often described as the very embodiment of grace and duty, arrived with the elegance the public had come to expect. Her gown was impeccable, her expression poised. Cameras flashed, choirs sang, the world watched. And yet, when Queen Camilla passed, something was missing. There was no curtsy. It was a moment so brief, so quiet, that many missed it entirely. But those who understood royal etiquette saw it instantly. Catherine had not performed the expected act of deference. She hadn't bowed to the newly crowned queen consort. To outsiders, it might have seemed like a mistake, a misstep. But to insiders, it was unmistakable. This wasn't a forgetful lapse in tradition. It was a deliberate choice. Behind the scenes, tension had been building for months, and this moment was the tip of the iceberg. According to palace sources, the real spark came days before the coronation, when Camilla's personal guest list raised royal eyebrows. Among the names, Rose Hanbury, the Marchioness of Cholmondeley, an aristocrat long rumored, albeit never confirmed, to have been at the center of troubling whispers about William and Catherine's marriage. The rumor, once dismissed as tabloid nonsense, had left an invisible bruise on the family's public image. Kate never addressed it, nor did William. But the pain was there, tucked neatly beneath the surface of their otherwise perfect smiles. And now, Camilla had chosen to invite Rose to the coronation, not to a private dinner, not to a garden party, to the most important royal event in a generation. To Catherine, it felt like a slap in the face. To William, it was unforgivable. The absence of a curtsy wasn't about ceremony. It was about boundaries. Royal watchers speculated for days. Was it Kate finally asserting herself? Was it a subtle warning shot aimed at a queen consort who had, perhaps, overstepped? Or was it a wife drawing a protective line around her marriage? Inside palace walls, it triggered something deeper. William, known for his calm and calculated composure, reportedly confronted Camilla in private. The conversation was said to be tense, emotional. Some described it as a reckoning. Years of polite tolerance giving way to a man defending not just his wife, but his future. Because the coronation may have crowned a new monarch, but it also revealed a quiet civil war within the firm. One that didn't end with words. It ended with an action. One that would shock even Queen Camilla. The Annabel Elliot affair. Behind palace walls, some confrontations don't come with raised voices, but with silence and signatures. One of the first public signs of William's changing stance came with a quiet yet powerful decision. He declined to renew the design contract of Camilla's sister, Annabel Elliot. For years, Annabel had been entrusted with interior projects across the Duchy of Cornwall, a role given during Charles's stewardship. She was paid handsomely for her services, enjoyed long-standing royal access and was a fixture of Camilla's inner circle. But the moment William inherited the duchy, he brought something else with it: accountability. According to reports, William made it clear: no more familial favoritism, no more blurred lines. Annabel's services were appreciated, but they were no longer needed. Officially, it was framed as a natural conclusion to a successful tenure. But within royal circles, the message was unmistakable. This was William's way of redrawing boundaries, politely but firmly. And Camilla felt the blow. After all, Annabel wasn't just her sister. She was one of the few people she trusted entirely. Losing her royal contract wasn't just about work. It was about protection, proximity, and a bond that once felt safe. Some say this was the real tipping point, that the tears Camilla shed weren't from confrontation, but from a realization. The next generation of power had no plans to protect the past. And as William began to implement sweeping changes in royal operations, it became painfully clear this was only the beginning. The new Duke of Cornwall. Once William assumed the title of Duke of Cornwall, everything shifted. The estate, once a symbol of royal tradition, became the first platform for his quiet revolution. He didn't just take over, he transformed. Gone were the days of opaque contracts and whispered deals. William insisted on transparency, modern management, and leaner spending. Royal staff were stunned, not by arrogance, but by efficiency. He treats it like a responsibility, not a privilege, one palace aide reportedly said, and that attitude extended beyond the numbers. William began to quietly phase out certain practices. Discretionary payments, inherited perks, and legacy arrangements were reviewed under a new standard: relevance and merit. The Annabel Elliot decision, as it turned out, was just the first domino. Camilla's long, comfortable presence in the duchy's dealings began to feel increasingly out of step with William's vision. And Charles, though emotionally torn, had little choice but to respect his son's authority in this role. William wasn't being reckless. He was being methodical. He wasn't just stepping into his father's shoes. He was redesigning the blueprint. And for Camilla, the writing was on the palace wall. The future king wasn't going to inherit the old system. He was going to rebuild it from the ground up. And with that realization came something even more unsettling: a confrontation. The confrontation. It wasn't a grand scene. There were no cameras, no courtiers, no official transcripts. But according to palace insiders, what happened behind that closed door shook Camilla to her core. William requested a private meeting, just him and Camilla. No Charles, no advisors. Sources say the air was tense the moment they sat down. Not hostile, just still. And then, with the weight of years pressing against his voice, William spoke. He expressed gratitude for her loyalty to his father. He acknowledged the public challenges she had endured. But then he said what no one had ever dared say to her directly. "There are boundaries now," he told her, "and I intend to uphold them." Camilla, reportedly caught off guard, pushed back, softly at first. But as the conversation deepened, so did the divide. William made clear that the new royal era needed clarity. No more blurred lines between family and influence. No more unspoken agreements. For Camilla, it felt like a verdict. A quiet exile from the circle of decision-making she had fought so hard to enter. When she emerged from the meeting, aides say her eyes were glassy, her steps unsteady. She didn't speak to anyone that day, and though the palace said nothing officially, word spread fast. Something had changed, and the Queen had cried. The Queen who cried. In public, Queen Camilla is stoic, composed. Trained by decades of headlines, she learned to walk through fire with a smile. But behind palace doors, even queens are human. Following her private conversation with William, Camilla retreated into silence. Not for a few hours, but for days. Insiders say she canceled engagements, missed meetings, avoided even those closest to her. It was unlike her, one aide admitted. We knew something had happened. We just didn't know what. What many don't realize is that Camilla has spent most of her royal life surviving the press, surviving scandal, surviving the relentless comparisons to Diana. But she had always believed that time would heal the fractures, that if she waited long enough, she'd be fully accepted. William's confrontation shattered that illusion. She didn't cry because she lost a title. She cried because she realized she had never truly been embraced by the future. It was a private, personal grief, one no crown could protect her from. And as the palace moved on, quietly shifting its focus to the next generation, Camilla was left to reckon with a truth she hadn't expected, that maybe her chapter was closing. Camilla's early doubts about Kate. Long before Queen Camilla wore a crown, she whispered doubts. According to multiple royal biographers and insiders, Camilla wasn't immediately taken with Catherine Middleton. Behind closed doors, in hushed conversations, she reportedly referred to Kate as too common and too middle class for royal life. Words that might sound harmless on their own, but in the rigid world of aristocracy, they sting like fire. Was it jealousy, snobbery, or a deeper fear that the woman marrying into the monarchy would one day outshine her? Either way, a seed was planted. To the public, Catherine always appeared calm, poised, unaffected. She said nothing, did nothing, but those who know her say she never forgot. Because sometimes, it's the quiet ones who carry things the longest. And the signs of tension were always there, if you knew where to look. The way Catherine kept a graceful but deliberate distance during joint appearances, the subtle stiffness in their interactions, the carefully choreographed civility that stopped just short of warmth. Years passed. The Queen aged. Charles waited. Camilla remained in the wings until she didn't. When Camilla was finally crowned Queen Consort, many expected a grand display of unity from the royal women. Instead, royal watchers noticed something else. Catherine's composure was intact, but it was cold, controlled, and some say unmistakably restrained. One royal insider summed it up best. Catherine played her role, but it felt like she was playing it for someone who wasn't in the room, someone watching from above. Diana. Then came the coronation. A day meant for history books. But what people remembered was the chill. The moment when Princess Kate didn't curtsy as Camilla passed. Royal protocol says she should have, but she didn't. Not because she forgot, but because something had changed. As whispers filled the palace halls, more fuel was added to the fire. Camilla had reportedly invited Rose Hanbury, the Marchioness of Cholmondeley, to the coronation ceremony. The same Rose who had been at the center of explosive rumors linking her to Prince William in 2019. The story was never confirmed. William and Kate never addressed it. But the rumor alone had caused ripples across the royal family. And now, Camilla had chosen to include Rose in one of the most sacred royal moments. Why? Was it a social oversight or a message sent loud and clear? Whatever the reason, it didn't go unnoticed. Least of all by William. That was the moment, sources say, that he snapped. Not as the heir, not as a prince, but as a husband. Because William may live by duty, but his loyalty lies with Catherine. And when he saw what he perceived as a deliberate slight toward the woman who had held their family together through storms, his response was swift. A son defending his wife isn't just personal. It's powerful. In royal life, that kind of defiance speaks volumes. It reshapes alliances, redefines roles, and signals that the next generation is no longer just waiting in line, they're taking the lead. Which brings us to the move that changed everything, the decision that made Queen Camilla cry. William's unshakable bond with Kate. In the royal family, loyalty is everything. But for William, loyalty starts at home. From the earliest days of their courtship, William has always viewed Catherine not just as his partner, but as his anchor, his peace, the one person who makes sense of a life constantly watched, constantly judged. When the world pushed in, she stayed steady. When scandals erupted, she remained silent but strong. And through every wave of family tension, Catherine never asked to lead. But she never stepped back either. That quiet grace hasn't gone unnoticed by William or by the public. So when it came time to defend her, he didn't hesitate. Those close to William say his breaking point wasn't just Camilla's rumored treatment of Catherine over the years. It was the pattern, the coldness, the invitations to controversial figures, the coronation slights that crossed the line. Enough was enough. One aide reportedly described it this way: William won't play palace politics when it comes to his wife. He draws the line, firmly. Because in his eyes, Catherine isn't just the mother of the future king. She's the future of the monarchy itself. And any threat, subtle or direct, to her dignity, her status, or her peace, William will meet it head-on. The crown may be inherited, but respect, that must be earned and protected. And just as Camilla once fought to be seen, Catherine has earned her place without a fight, without scandal, without ego. Which brings us to the battlefield that may matter more than any palace hall: public perception. Queen Camilla's PR battle, image versus influence. Camilla has fought hard to reshape her image. And to her credit, she's come a long way. From tabloid villain to queen consort, her journey is nothing short of historic. But beneath the surface of redemption lies a more complicated reality: influence. For years, Camilla has been seen as a quiet operator, someone with the king's ear, someone who, though rarely in front of a microphone, knows exactly how things work behind the scenes. But in the new royal age, where William and Catherine represent transparency, compassion, and modern values, Camilla's style has started to feel outdated. And now, with William asserting authority and Catherine receiving more public support than ever, Camilla's reign as queen consort is under a very different kind of spotlight. People are asking, did she rise too far, too fast? Did she truly earn the title, or was it granted as part of a quiet compromise? That's the challenge she now faces, not just within palace walls, but in the court of public opinion. Because every headline, every clipped moment, every passing glance between her and Catherine is examined, replayed, and judged. And with William taking a firmer hand in royal decisions, her influence may be waning, quietly but undeniably. All of which brings us to the man in the middle of it all. Charles caught in the middle, a father's dilemma. King Charles is no stranger to tension. But this is different, because this isn't just public scandal or tabloid gossip. This is personal. This is family. William is not only his heir, he is his firstborn, the man who will inherit everything Charles has spent a lifetime preserving. But Camilla is his wife, his partner through years of shame and resurgence, the woman he stood by when the world turned its back. So when William drew a line, when he said, "No more," Charles was left torn between two worlds. One insider described Charles's reaction in one word: devastated. He reportedly tried to mediate, to soften William's stance, to protect Camilla from further hurt. But it was too late. The decision had already been made. Charles may wear the crown, but William holds the future. And for a monarch who spent decades waiting for the throne, that realization is painful. He's watching his legacy shift in real time, watching his son wield the kind of influence he once dreamed of having, and watching his wife, the woman who stood beside him through fire, now face a different kind of isolation. Charles, the father. Charles, the husband. Charles, the king. 3 roles. 1 impossible choice. And as the silence stretches between William and Camilla, the royal family feels the strain, not just emotionally, but structurally, because now questions are rising about what this rift truly means for the crown, what this means for the future. The British monarchy has weathered centuries of turmoil, abdications, affairs, wars, scandals. But what's happening now feels different, because this time the battle isn't external, it's within. Sources close to the palace whisper of a silent chill. Conversations that once flowed now require courtiers to coordinate. Schedules that once overlapped now diverge with deliberate distance. And at the heart of it, a queen who feels increasingly sidelined, an heir who's ready to modernize, and a king caught in the middle. The press isn't saying much yet, but those who know the rhythm of the palace say it's unmistakable. The family is divided, not in tabloids, not in shouting matches, but in decisions, in subtle refusals, in the quiet language of power. If William continues to assert himself, if Catherine continues to gain public momentum, and if Camilla continues to lose influence, the shape of the monarchy may change forever. Some say this is necessary, that the old ways must fade to make room for the new. Others fear that without unity, the institution itself could crack under pressure. And still, through it all, the royal family marches on. Public smiles, official statements, and silent walls. But behind those palace gates, the lines have been drawn. And in that triangle of power, William, Charles, Camilla, the next chapter is already unfolding. A royal triangle. 3 people, 1 crown and a legacy hanging in the balance. At the head stands King Charles, finally in the role he waited decades to claim. But with every decision he makes, he must weigh 2 loyalties, one to the woman he loves, and one to the son he raised to one day replace him. Beside him is Queen Camilla, once vilified, now coronated. But her position, while official, may no longer be secure in spirit. And standing slightly ahead, in the light of tomorrow, is Prince William. He is not yet king, but he leads like one. And his choices, from refusing to rehire Camilla's sister to protecting Catherine at all costs, speak volumes. He has drawn a line, made his position clear. Camilla's role, once quietly powerful, may now be symbolic. Because as far as William is concerned, there is no room in the future of the crown for anything or anyone that threatens its integrity. And for Charles, the choice he may never admit to making is already clear in the actions of his heir. The triangle holds, for now. But with each day, the weight shifts. One storm has passed, but another may be coming. Because when power, love, and legacy collide, someone always gets left in the shadow. And now the world is watching to see which royal will be left behind.